The following podcast contains strong language like what the actual fuck.
Scarecrow Festival is like the most important day of the year. What? Daft cow?
This is just ridiculous. What the actual fuck?
Hey, what the actual fuckers, and welcome to WTAF, a This Country podcast. Now, first, he's a man who has some explaining to do. I bought him a lovely waffle maker and just noticed this in the village hall on a stall ready for Harvest Festival. It's Neil. Explain yourself, man.
Because I'm always giving to good causes, Pav. Always.
That's not
and
good.
The size of me, I don't need any more waffles.
Cost me a fortune, that waffle iron.
Got it at the tip, didn't you?
I did, yes. Don't say any more. Our superfan guest this episode, you'll know as long-suffering partner of Beats in People Just Do Nothing, alongside Greg Davies in Man Down, and opposite Ricky Gervais in Derek. Please welcome to WTAF the one and only Ruth Bratt. Hello!
Hey!
We were saying before we went on there, we were admiring your bat phone. So I just got to say, she has this lovely old style phone. Kids, look on Google if you want to Google what an old style phone looks like.
Yeah, and it's a proper old style one as well. It doesn't have the push buttons pretending to be dial buttons. It's an actual dial. You have to dial it.
God.
Yeah, I know.
That's really weird for you to use it again. Going back.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, and like that thing where you leave your finger in the dial and follow it round. Oh, I love it.
I was trying to think the last time I saw a proper phone like that, because it's just like, that's starts off really well.
I got sick of the batteries running out on the cordless thing, and I just went, why am I? Come on, let's save the planet. Let's not have something with batteries. I'm saving the planet with an old phone.
Well done. You're doing your bit. You're lowering your footprint, or whatever it's called. I don't.
Exactly.
Okay, we will talk a lot about, because there's loads of stuff I want to talk to you about, the stuff that you've done. But This Country, when we were messaging, you said you were a massive fan.
Oh, I love it.
Where did you? It was on and you started watching it, or were there murmurs in the industry, if you like?
I didn't hear about it through the industry. I saw it come on, and I remember watching it, and I said to my partner at the time, I was like, oh, we have to watch this. And I think he's probably even a bigger fan than I am. He just loves it. And we just started watching it together, and it's so funny. And it was really weird because at the time, like, a lot of people were like, oh, is there any kind of like beef between People Just Do Nothing in this country? And you're like, no, it's funny. As long as it's funny and good, that's all I want on telly. Just want funny stuff. So yeah, I just love it. I love it.
I was going to say about the mockumentary style. Obviously, you're in People Do Nothing. That's a mockumentary style. Is that a style that you've always been a fan of?
Is it? I mean, yeah. Like if it's done well, it's brilliant, right? Because you can, because there is something weird, isn't there, about pretending a camera's not somewhere. I mean, that's just weird. It's a conceit that we all buy into. But there's something about the mockumentary that allows more to come out, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For more honesty, and like complete honesty, or just a caught, glance to camera, which is my favourite thing to do. Just because I'm terrible at looking down the lens anyway. Like when I'm doing proper acting, looking right down the lens. Oh, sorry, not allowed to do that. Oh.
Yeah. But, breaking the fourth wall or whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's just a very different. It gives you a different feel, I think, to what you're doing, and a freedom as well.
So was it, you said about the humour when you first saw This Country, Ruth? Was it that drew you into This Country to begin with?
What honestly drew me in is how good everyone is in it.
Right.
I'm obsessed with good acting. Like, I just want to see good acting. That's it.
So is it, with the mockumentary,
funny, you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
with the mockumentary style though, is it a different kind of acting? Because you've got to act like you're not acting in a mockumentary, haven't you?
I mean, well, I could get into what I believe acting is.
No,
become like
by all means.
like a terrible.
We'd love to hear your process.
I mean, yeah, it is just so. There's a level on which you just have to be. You can't show your acting. You know how sometimes when you're watching something and you're like, "God, there's a lot of acting going on here."
Yeah.
People are like really emoting, and and there's a place for that, and that's great. But I think for me, like the natural kind of just understated what people are like, I mean, but also remembering that people are weird. Like, when you watch people in real life, they do way more extreme things. You're like, well, I don't think you'd get away with that. If you put that on a telly, people would be like, well, no one would do that. Yeah, they do all the time.
Yeah.
Out my street last week. So, but I think, so I think there's something much more kind of naturalistic, sort of smaller. So you're not showing your acting. That's the thing that, and you don't see the acting in this country. It's just people just being. You don't see the acting, although the acting, and I think that is why the acting is incredible. I mean, just everyone in it is.
So, did you watch it when it first came out, or have you binged each series?
I watched the first series when it first came out, and I think we binge watched it because it was on BBC Three, so I think you could binge watch. So I think we did it pretty quickly, and then I think the second series or the third series I was away filming, so I didn't catch it, and then I caught it latterly, and just and also I've been going back watching it while I've been in lockdown, and every now and then I'm like, just watch to this country. It's that or RuPaul's Drag Race.
So have you got, when it came to the third series, were you quite happy with the way that everything finished and like, well, they've said that there isn't going to be any more, but you quite happy with that?
I'm not a person who gets really I can love things, but I don't get so caught up in them that I'm like, that hasn't ended the way I wanted it to end. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite like, oh, that's the way they wanted to end it. That's great. Like, I remember when I watched Battlestar Galactica, the new one, and everyone was going, well, wait till you get to the end, and we got to the end and I went, it's all right, isn't it? I don't really know what happened, but it's all right. That's what they wanted to do. Yeah. Same with Game of Thrones. Like, I thought, I'm not a massive fan of that, but I didn't get like wound up by it. So I kind of feel the same with this. Like, this is how they wanted to end it. It's their show. They I mean, I think it's sad that it's ended, but it's the same with people just do nothing. I think you come to a point where you go, we've said what we need to say. The writers feel they've said what they need to say. They've done what they need to do. And I think if you keep, sometimes, not always, but it can become the law of diminishing returns. You're either repeating stories or you're, and I think that becomes like a personal, like, no, I think I'm done with this. And I know from, stuff that I've written, there's definitely things where you're like, no, I think we've done this. I don't think we need to, if we do this again, we are literally going to be doing this again rather than moving forward. And, they could keep going forever. Of course they could. But, if they feel like they're done, then they're done.
Do you have a favourite character then, Ruth?
Huh?
Do you have a favourite character in this country?
Yeah, Big Mandy. I love Mandy. I mean, I love Ashley anyway. So Ashley and I worked together on Derek, and then this series with the book club. Like, I've always loved it, like the tattoos. I only do big ones and all that, and amazing. But then this series with the book club episode, oh my goodness, I laughed so hard. I had to tell her. I was like, I had to keep pausing it to give myself a little break, and because I think that is a brilliant character and a brilliant bit of acting.
Yeah.
Like,
she does so much with not very just that scene in Driving Lesson where she just she's resting in the door of the car and just looking at them. It's so ominous. I'm shit scared when I watch that because I'm not even in the room with her. I'm just watching the screen. She has that presence that she will cave your head in if she gets if she wants to. Exactly. There doesn't have to be a reason.
Like, you know, their reaction to her is so brilliant that they're kind of always on the move. Like they're always trying to just keep walking to just get away. Like, but they have to be polite and they have to like all of that. I find brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, so she's my fave, I think. Yeah,
I must admit, because when I managed to talk to you and say to get you to come on the podcast, I hadn't actually watched People Just Do Nothing, so I've watched the first 2 series now. So I'm sort of going through it. A friend of mine runs a fan group.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and said, "Oh, I'm so jealous that you get to go and watch it now because obviously he's watched it in minute detail." He said so. So try not to spoil anything for me because I've got 2 more seasons, two more series to go. But I did notice online there's a film.
Yeah, so we filmed it last. Oh, when did it? So I guess it was October last year, and then it was meant to be coming out, I think, this summer. But I imagine with lockdown and what have you. So I think they probably haven't done the edit yet because they haven't. They were able to be in a tiny little basement room together.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably delayed. I don't know. I haven't heard exactly what, but I have heard that when they want me to do ADR, and that's much later when we can finally get back into recording studios and what have you. So
right.
Yeah. So it is made.
Yeah.
It's done. It's just
right. They're just waiting for the time to be able to
and like when we can get in and just go, into a microphone.
Yeah.
We just missed like one little bit of dialogue.
It's funny when you said earlier on, because when Neil mentioned about whether there's any rivalry between like the 2 productions, it feels to me, because they're both documentaries or mockumentaries, if you like, that it's like the BBC. It's the same BBC unit that has made both documentaries. They're just making it about different parts of the country.
Yeah, but I don't know whether they were commissioned, but because the commissioners changed so much.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean like in the actual story.
Oh, in the actual story.
Yeah.
They've got a documentary team that just go out and
they just find certain people from different parts of the country and off they go, and it's just almost like that they're paired in a way. They're sort of cut from the same cloth.
I think they are, and I think they're both. God, there's so much room for stuff, especially now. Like, I think everyone's crying out for stuff. There's so much room. There's enough pie for everyone. Not everything has to be a competition. That's and I auditioned for this country.
Oh really?
Yeah,
tell us more.
Yeah, it was when I was up in Edinburgh, and I had to do a self tape. And it's really hard, and because you're like, I don't really know what about what. And it was I can't remember what the character was, but when I saw who they cast, I was like, oh yeah, I was never going to get that. Like, no, that wasn't me.
It wasn't Len, was it?
It wasn't Len, yeah. But I mean, I was so thrilled. I was like, and so I was sitting in this we were in a rented place in Edinburgh, and it was huge. Like, it was this massive Georgian building that had been divided into flats, like they are in Edinburgh. And so our front room was just enormous. It was like, it was palatial. And I was sitting there doing like, this country dialogue in this like palatial, like Georgian fantasy room. I was like, I don't think this is right.
So did you have to do the accent?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Did you have to do the accent?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh.
How did you find that?
Well, I mean, I think it was all right, but it's, I don't know. I mean, it's there, isn't it? It's that sort of,
yeah.
I can't remember who she was that it was going to be, but it's, yeah. It's quite, also because it's quite soft, because you're never getting like raging angry. You can get away with a bit more, I think. That's when people are always whispering when they're acting now. Everyone's whispering all the time. It's because if you shout, it's really hard to keep up an accent that isn't your own.
Oh, really?
Keep up an accent when you're whispering. Yeah.
There's a big top tip there from a top actor. There you go. We need to
Make a
write
note
that.
of that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll make a note of that one now. Make a note of that.
Yeah.
Whispering. Do you find it hard to find accents and to do accents, or do they come quite easily to you?
No, they come quite easy. There's a few that I find harder than others, but they come quite easy.
Because there's Carol in Man Down, you.
Oh yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that was when I went in for the audition for that. I auditioned for something different, and I've known Greg for years. Like he and I've known each other for a long time, probably like 15, 20 years now. And I went in and I auditioned for this part, and it was the part of there's a woman in the bank who looks a bit like him, and he ends up wearing and they have this really weird, but they end up looking like each other, and it's really strange. And so I went and did the audition. We all had a laugh, and the director is a director I've worked with before, and I was really aware, like, because when you're going in for an audition and you hear the person in the room before you and they're having a whale of a time, it's like, oh god. So like we were laughing and whatever, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then as I came out, Greg was like, look, and there was a massive mirror like in front of the thing. He was like, best one in the world, mate. We don't look like each other, do we? And I went, no, we don't. And he went, but are you free now? Could you stay and audition for Carol? And I was like, yeah, sure. He said, we'll let the next person go in to audition, and then that means you've got half an hour to sit and read some sides. And I went, okay, great. What's she like? And he went, she's like a broken Alan Bennett. And that was it.
Perfect.
And I went, brilliant. And I know that, like, I can do broken Alan. So that's where, yeah. So that was basically him kind of giving such a great direction. But yeah, she was. I love playing her. We laughed way too much.
I was going to say, we spoke to Ashley Maguire on last week's episode, and we were talking. And obviously, she was in Man Down as well. We were talking about how I love watching bloopers, and the Cross-Eyed Christ blooper.
Oh my god!
It's one of the ones that it's just how you got through that scene. I honestly don't know, because I'm sure we only saw half of.
Yeah,
going on.
And the worst bit was like, so Greg had that cup of tea, and because the camera wasn't on him, and he was doing the like he was starting to laugh, but he had a cup of tea up, so he was getting away with it. So it looked like I was just laughing. I'm like, it's totally him twinkling at me,
right? When
I have to say, Cross-Eyed Christ, and oh yeah, I mean there were a few that we just couldn't get through. It was really hard, but Cross-Eyed Christ was, I think, the hardest. And also, once you start.
Yeah.
No chance, mate. You've got no chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the best bloopers I think I've ever seen, that one. And
yeah.
And you worked with Baldrick himself as well, Tony Robinson, in that.
Oh, it was so exciting.
My God. So what was that like working with him?
It was amazing. He's such a great bloke. And we were basically, there was one day where we were just there's a bit where we're in a car. He's driving the car and we're all in the car, and so you're just on like the back of a truck, it's like there's like a trailer thing, so you're not actually driving, you're being driven, but it looks like you're driving. And we were just, and so most of the day was just driving around, and so we'd do a take and then you'd have to go back to where you started from again. So there was a lot of the day of us just kind of nattering away with him sitting in the front seat, in the driver's seat, not driving. But it was really lovely. He's such a nice bloke. And it's but also like Stephanie Cole and and Mrs. McCluskey.
Yeah. Yes.
It was dreamy. And so it was really funny because we were doing the scene. I don't know. I don't want to give it away because it is brilliant when it happens. But we were doing a scene in a wood that had like a big. It's got a big stunt that we only had one take for, and it was a massive setup. There were like drones and like cameras and explosives and whatever, and everyone came down to set to watch it. It was really exciting, and that was the first time I met Stephanie Cole. And so we're standing in these woods around the back of Pinewood, and we're just sort of standing there waiting for them to set up a monster truck and whatever. And I just started chatting to her and ended up having this incredibly long conversation with Stephanie Cole about feminism and Tenko. And I was like, this is like my dream, you know, with like looking the worst I've ever looked, thanks to Greg Davies, like looking horrendous. But just, it was, amazing. It was really amazing.
Do you ever get starstruck, Ruth?
Yeah, all the time.
Do
All
you?
the time. Yeah. So I did, I'm terrible for it. And I did Sarah Millican's radio show. It's quite a long time ago. It's a few years ago now. And I've known Sarah for a while, and she sent me a message because that basically I was a recurring character, and then we had guest people on every week. And normally I didn't find out who was the guest until the day of the recording. There was one week she sent me a message at the beginning of the week and said, I just need to prepare you, Mark Heap is coming in. I went,
oh my god.
And so I was going, right, yeah, okay, I'll be fine by the end of the week, I promise. I won't be hyperventilating. And I got to the place where we were recording it, and I was the first one there, and then he was the second person there, and there was no one else. And I was like, come on, get it together, Ruth. And I was having a really sensible conversation with him, and we were laughing and we were having a nice time. And then so we were sort of standing chatting, and then Sarah walked in through the door, and I turned around and I just went I was so excited to be talking. It was terrible. She was like, you were doing so well. Oh, you ruined it. But yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how did you get on with working with another famous corpse, Ricky Gervais?
Oh, it's really hard. The laughter is, but it's amazing working with him. I learned so much working with him about how to film.
Right.
Like, you know, the 2-camera setup at all times, and you know, and also that he will not work after 4. He's like, nah, no point.
Yeah.
Whereas so many other things you're like schlepping on till, you know, 7 or 8, which doesn't seem that late, but when you've had to get up at 5 to get to set, it's, you know, that's quite a long day. So and the crew have been there for even longer, you know. So by the end of the day, it's quite full on, and that was quite interesting. And it was done in the same amount of time. It wasn't like it took longer. But yeah, I mean, and again, like, I knew a lot of the people who were on it because I've known Kerry for a long time, and David, and Brett. So, you know, a lot of the time was just giggling. I mean, it was really weird though because they filmed it in August, and I do Edinburgh most years, obviously not this year, but most years. And so I had to fly down for a week to do a week filming and then fly back up. And because of the timing, there is one bit you can see where I was in a group shot, and then when they do the wide, I'm not there.
All right.
I'm on the back of a bike going to Heathrow. So it was, I mean, fascinating, you know, all of it. And then, you do just kind of, you have to get over the starstruckness pretty quickly, or pretend you're not. So I did a thing last Christmas. I did the David Walliams Christmas show for Sky, and you know, David Walliams, that's pretty big. And then we didn't know who we were working with, and I was on the Ugly Sisters with my mate Camille, who was the other ugly sister, and we went into the room for the first read through, and I'm here, she's there, and then in between us is our mother, who's Celia Imrie, and just was sitting like this, oh god, we're really trying to be so cool, and then and she's amazing, you know, and so, but all of it is like I kind of take all of it as like a masterclass on how to act and how to be on set and how to, you know, all these people are amazing. I mean, Tom Courtney.
So how do you deal when you have fans come up to you and like are in awe of you?
I can never understand why anyone would be. And
see, Ashley said exactly the same thing. They didn't understand, and I find that hard to believe.
Well, I was like, mucking about. I mean, for some reason, like, I get paid to do it. You know, but I do find it quite hard because although, you know, I'm quite open and I'm quite reserved, I am quite, you know, kind of, thank you very much. But mostly because I'm just like, I'm going to be so disappointing to you because I'm not Roche and I'm not Carol and I'm not, you know, any of these people. I'm just me. And when you're not, or certainly when I'm not on, you know, I'm a bit quieter and a bit. So I'm always worried. I'm always worried I'm going to be a very boring disappointment. And I also I can't quite work out why anyone would be at all starstruck. But it's always lovely and it's always nice to meet people and, you know, but, you know, I'm always just aware that I'm probably a massive disappointment.
But then I'm sure Celia Imrie is probably thinking exactly the same thing when you're there hyperventilating in front of her.
Yeah, we told her, we were like, Celia, we couldn't quite cope. And she was like, oh, why? I want to see you. You know, like, you know. So, yeah, she doesn't get it either. No one. I mean, anyone who gets it is probably a bit of.
Oh, we love it. When the fans come to us, we love it. I mean, we just soak up their adoration. They're banging on the door as we speak. Like, what can I do about it? There's not much you can do.
I mean, it's really like, it's lovely to know that people love what you do. It's lovely to know that people appreciate what you do. You know, that's always nice. But it's just, you know, there is always a little awkwardness about it. As well, because, you know, I mean, especially when you do something like this country, where you're in someone's living room being something that looks like it could be you, and so they know you, or they know they feel they know you, but you as a performer are at a total disadvantage because you've never seen this person. You have nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a very uneven thing where people feel like they know a person, you know, and especially now with like social media and stuff. Like I've been watching Daisy's TikToks, you know, where they're doing all their hilarious dancing, which is the only reason I joined TikTok to watch them, and then went, oh, I'm too old for TikTok, and immediately left. And I just think, you know, when people see that, like, because you feel like you know her through that, and that's a brilliant thing. But it's also kind of.
Have you seen Daisy on Instagram with the sea captain?
Yes, what is that? Because so basically, I took a little break from the social media,
right? Which is a good idea at the moment.
Oh, it's all a bit much, isn't it? And I went back on yesterday to check something and went, "What's the sea captain?"
Well, I think it's a scammer. Somebody sent a message to Daisy saying, "I like your picture. Would you like to be friends?" and stuff like that. So Daisy has grabbed this bull by the horns and has tried to start this love affair with this guy. And apparently he packed her in today as we record. He said, "I don't want you to message me anymore. Please leave me alone."
Oh, apparently, he does keep messaging him.
Well, apparently he asked for £1,000, apparently. So it's like straight out of the Cynthia episode. It was like Len giving £3,000 to Cynthia on the internet. Yeah, it was really weird by the looks of it. This, So Daisy just sent about a picture on Instagram of her crying her eyes out and saying that I've been dumped. And it's over, and I don't know what to do. But she is good value on social media. I have to admit, she is so much. The dances that she does is fantastic.
Yeah, they're really brilliant. I love the casualty one.
Yes. So how have you been coping during lockdown?
Well, it's been a bit weird, isn't it?
Yes.
A bit weird. So I think I had it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really early on. So the week before lockdown, I was already locked down.
Right.
And then I didn't leave the house for another 3 weeks, something like that. Just because I couldn't really. I was so I had really bad breathing problems. And like, you know, went to the letterbox to send my dad a birthday card, and what normally takes 3 minutes took me 17 and a half.
Oh no.
Wow, oh, this is bad. So when I eventually emerged from my weird cocoon, the world was like weird because everything was shut. So I'd missed all the slow shutting down of things because I was already at home. So that was really odd. And then I think I'm done with it now. I think I'd like to go and do some things. I'd like some work now. That's what I'd like. I think that's been really weird. Like no work.
Is there actually like a government deadline or something when your sort of work will start again, or is it just when people decide that they want to do it?
Well, I think that people are allowed to film now. They are starting the filming stuff back up, but with, as far as I understand, quite strict distancing rules, which I think, you can fudge stuff with camera angles and what have you. So I believe there is some stuff going on, and they have opened up they have opened up some voiceover places now that you can go to, but in terms of live work, I mean, I have no idea, because
it's not just the people on stage, it's social distancing for people.
Well, so the
in the audience
thing for the people in the audience, they're going, oh, we can do that because there's, you can put every other seat, and I mean, I looked at one of the things, I was like, oh my god, there's the death of comedy. It's so separate, and that's the kind of thing that normally when you walk out onto a stage and you see that, you go, okay, strap in, lads. You know it's going to be a bit tougher. But I think that the thing that is weirdest is like, where they're like, so you could open it and you're like, yeah, but have you ever been backstage in a comedy club or a theatre? Like, social distancing back there. Like, there's no space. No. I've never been 2 meters away from anyone backstage it's like, I think, a physical impossibility. So I'd be surprised. I mean, we are chatting now with so I do a thing called Showstopper, which is an improvised musical, and so there is a whole thing about even if you're allowed to be within 2 meters of one another, singing, of course, creates much bigger you're using a lot more lungs, so you're spreading a lot more. So they are saying that you probably shouldn't be within 12 meters of someone.
Oh my god!
Singing, which I was like, ooh, yeah. So that's why a lot of things are going to be really difficult, because you're like, how can you be that far away from? So I don't know, but we are chatting about. There's some things in the. I mean, the reason we haven't done a lot of that stuff online is because of the problems with lag.
Yeah.
Because you can't. If I'm in a different room from the person playing the keys, I've got no chance. I mean, you can really easily test it if you all try and sing happy birthday to someone. Then you see where the problems lie.
Yeah.
But
you could do the shows at Wembley Stadium. I mean, that's big enough.
Yeah.
But then
I mean, I'm up for it.
Okay.
So it'd be interesting to see like how things go, and I mean, especially things like this country and people just do nothing. When I think about where those are filmed and how those are filmed, I mean, it would be almost impossible, because they're all filmed on location, so you couldn't do any. I mean, you can't do any location filming in someone else's house. Like, there's no way you'd be allowed to do that.
No.
And in most of those buildings, you can't get 2 meters away from someone. And on a sort of set, there's so many people. There's like 50 people most days.
Yeah.
In the vicinity, So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all works.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I was going to ask Ruth, what made you go into the industry then?
What made me go into the industry? I was going to be a human rights lawyer, because I was really right on, and I was at I went to university and I did a semester in America, and while I was there, I'd never really done much acting until I got into sixth form, and then I did the school play, and that was the first time I'd ever really shown any real interest, apart from doing dances to fame in my front room.
Who hasn't done that?
Who hasn't? And if you haven't, do it. It's it's glorious. But you've got to do it with a turntable, so that every time you do a leap, it jumps, and then you have to. Otherwise,
another tip, Neil. Another tip we got to write down there.
Another
acting tip. Yeah.
Exactly.
I've already got my leg warmers on.
So I was in the States, and I was doing some extracurricular acting stuff, and one of the guys who I'd been doing a show with was on a directing course, and he was directing some Noel Coward play, and he said, "Oh, you're English, brilliant, I've got a ringer, can you come and play one of the parts, because you've got the best accent, because you are actually English." And I went, "Oh yeah, okay." So I went and did his exam piece, basically, and his tutor did the feedback stuff, and then went, "Now, who are you?" And I went, "Oh, my name's Ruth, I'm an exchange student." And he was like, "And why aren't you in my classes?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to. I have to do African American narrative and the history of American women." All my right on courses. And he said, and then he was like, right, but you're going to do this, right? And I was like, oh. And it was the first time, like, people had said, you could do, but no one had ever said, "You're going to do this, aren't you? This could be a thing you do." And I was like, oh, all right, yeah, I'm going to do this, yeah. So that was kind of the catalyst for it. And then I was a very serious actor for 5 years and never got a job. I think I had one job. I played Juliet in a fringe production of Romeo and Juliet. It was very good. And and I used to do murder mysteries, and my mate doing murder mysteries was like, you have to come and do this stand-up course I'm doing. It's so much fun. This is the way. And so I did, and never looked back. And it was basically, I started doing it when stand-up was kind of, it was just the start of that bubble, that comedy bubble. And I was very fortunate to start at that point, and and I got a lot of opportunity from that. And I always wanted to do comedy. That was always, it's what my natural rhythm is, rather than, because I think everyone has a different natural rhythm, right? And mine is definitely not very serious. And so I find, like, doing really serious stuff, like, all right. But my joy comes from the twinkle, the twinkle in the eye, where you see that you've got someone with something you've said or done, or someone gets you, and they twinkle because they know they've caught you.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff really speaks to me. But yeah, so I was just very kind of fortunate to be just there at that point. That was when and so everything has come from that, really. But that was, it was basically people going, "Do this," and me going, "Oh yeah, all right then, yeah, I'll do that." Good idea. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Same with Showstopper. Like, people are like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, well, I'd been doing improv for a while, and the reason I started doing improv was because I was up there and a mate said, "Do you want to come and do my improv show tonight?" And I went, "Yeah, go on then." I'd never done it. I didn't know, and went on and went, "Oh, this is amazing." And then Showstopper was a mate who was like, "Please come and do this, please come and do this." I was like, "Oh, I'm really busy, I'm not." And then he called me when I was on holiday, and I picked up the phone, and I'd never normally pick up the phone. And then I picked it up, and I was like, "Oh God, this is costing me a fortune," because it was before it was Freebs. And so I just said yes to it to get him off the phone. That's kind of, that's basically how all of my career.
Well, to be fair, that's how we got you on the podcast. I said, come and do our podcast. You went, yeah, I'll come and do your podcast. Okay, before we carry on, we're going to have a little game of Kerry or Kurtan. I'm going to give you a line of dialogue, and you need to tell me if it was Kerry or Kurtan that said it.
Oh, crikey. Okay.
So are you ready? Here's number one. You got 5 of these.
Ooh.
Number one, are you wearing John Paul Gaultier, Vicar? Is that Kerry or Kurtan?
Kerry.
That was Kurtan. In the
I'm going to be so bad at this.
Just after the vicar had said that he was leaving. Question number 2. You can have your little parish in Bristol, whatever, but you stay in the village here to live.
Oh, that's Kerry, right?
No, that was Kurtan as well.
That was Kurtan as well. I'm literally hearing it in my head and going, oh, I remember that scene.
So that's 0 for 2 so far. Number 3.
I'm so bad.
Number 3.
I'm so bad.
Okay. He just shrugged like that. Such a shame.
I'm going to say Kerry because one of them's got to be.
That is Kerry. That was the very first episode. Literally one of the very first lines of the show. That was when they were talking about Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen.
Oh, yeah.
That one, yes. Number 4. He's called Nugget because his second name is Nuggins. Is that Kerry or Kurtan?
Kerry.
Now, I've got to pull you up on that because you said both names there. Kerry. You're not having that. Is it Kerry or Kurtan?
Kerry.
It is Kerry.
Yay! All right.
So Kurtan was going on about somebody lobbed a finger off and somebody ate.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's right. So 2 out of 4 so far. Your final one.
Go on.
This is the one.
This is the decider.
It is. You know I don't like mini milks.
Oh, I remember this because mini milks are the only ice cream I do like.
Okay.
I can't remember who said it. I reckon it's Kerry. That sounds like a Kerry.
It is Kerry. Well done.
Thanks.
The GMVQ episode. You really sorted that. Was wonderful. Bad start, but 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5.
Very respectable. Very respectable.
Yeah. I'm terrible. By the way, I am terrible at remembering things from. So for ages, I was really confused with the new Star Wars films because I'd watched them because you feel like you should. And I remember I was chatting to my ex about it, and I was going because when we went and saw that one, and he went, "That's not the Star Wars film you're thinking of," and I went, "Well, these are not the droids you're looking for." And I went, well, what do you mean it's not? And he went, that's a different film. And what has happened is in my head, I've mushed all of the new Star Wars and all of like the Rogue Ones and all of them into one film.
Right.
And that is why I'm so utterly confused about the story.
That is totally understandable. I think unless you're like I mean, we're big Star Wars fans and we get all of that. It's when you try and explain to somebody when you say, well, it's episode 4, but it was the first one they made. And straight away, then people look at you with this blank step. What do you mean? Like episode 1 was made, the 4th one made. No, that doesn't make any sense. No.
Yeah, and I didn't like those ones.
Yeah,
because they didn't have Han Solo in them.
That's true. That's true.
Who was my first ever crush?
Right.
Really?
One quick question I got for you then, Ruth.
Yeah.
Because I fear the time is running out. So we've spoken to other people about this country, and a lot of them have said it resonates from their youth. Does it have any resonation to your youth at all?
Yeah, so I grew up in mostly in sort of southeast London. So there's a lot that you're like, could that even be the same? And I'm going to say yes, it is. There was nothing to do in suburban southeast London when I was growing up. So so they got rid of the cinema. They got rid of the cinema and they turned it into a McDonald's. That was all we had. But you couldn't, because we didn't have any money, so we couldn't go into McDonald's. So what we used to do was hang out outside McDonald's. That was what you did. You hung out outside McDonald's, or if you lacked McDonald's for some reason, you'd go and hang out outside the Civic Centre. Again, outside. No.
Not inside.
Not inside. And then your last ditch was hanging out outside the Walnuts Leisure Centre. So there was a lot of kind of hanging out with nothing much to do. And I remember, so when I was sort of a teenager, by the time like a few of us, you know, by the time we'd learnt to drive and like a couple of people had cars, and then we'd just go for drives. And you like, what, where? I mean, out into Kent, and you just sort of driving around Kent, because what else is there to do? There's nothing else to do. We're going to go and drive around Kent. And I remember one particularly bored night, we drove to Hever Castle, which is it's weirdly close to where you know, it's all very weirdly close to London, but it is suddenly country. And we drove to Hever Castle, and it was, I think it must have been about midnight, and we went, let's break it. Well, we climbed over the wall, and then we're just in the grounds of Hever Castle, and then went whoosh, and then climbed back out again and drove home. You know, or we'd do things like drive out to a little village and then sit on a roundabout that had a bench on it, or do you know what I mean? There was a lot of that kind of bored hanging about. And I mean, it was a bit different because we could always go into town. You know? So on a day when you were really bored, we'd go, let's go into London, and you know, you go to Camden and hang around in Camden again, not
outside.
Just walk around the market and maybe buy yourself like some kind of scarf or something, you know, if you were really feeling flush. But it was kind of, that sort of hanging about with nothing to do really definitely resonates. I think it's a different hanging about with nothing to do but you know, that kind of inactivity, I think everyone's had that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I mean, definitely, you know, and when we were at university, we were also skint. There was a lot of kind of hanging about, just sort of sitting somewhere, going, what, you know, what do you do? What do you do if you're, you know, just sitting about talking shit because you can't do anything, you know.
Yeah, and just dreaming of bright lights somewhere else unattainable, somewhere that
you know, like, like, you know. And so I have a big thing about so I'm selling my flat now, like I was saying before, but the idea of, and cannot afford anything in London, obviously, even though I'm in London, but you know, it's just crazy. But the idea of moving into the suburbs just because I remember the inactivity and the kind of the weird tedium, and I'm sure it wouldn't be like that now, but that's my memory of it. And you know, just a lot. I mean, me and my mate for years used to. So when we were little kids, one of the things we'd do was we had roller skates, and everyone else had roller boots. Do you remember? Everyone had roller boots. But both of our parents were like, no, they're too expensive. That's ridiculous. You're going to get these and you're going to go out of them. So we got those ones that were extendable. Do you remember those? Little ones, and you strap them onto your shoes.
To your shoes.
It had like a little wing nut at the bottom, so you could make them bigger and smaller. And we used to just roller skate around the block. Just around and around. And I remember once doing it and being stuck in a hailstorm and being like, oh well, and just carrying on, because you're like, what else are you going to do? You know, or we'd have Ribena drinking competitions, or because there's nothing. Like, what else are you going to do?
I think it's exactly what this country and people that do nothing have tapped into. It's that thing of I remember always, it goes back to what Kurtan said when Jacob said that he comes from Bristol, and Kurtan says, well, what's the real world like? You know, it's like they're in their little bubble, and to be able to go to Gloucester services is an amazing thing for them. Or, you know, it's just their level of what they have as something that they can obtain, and some is just out of their reach.
Yeah. And I wonder whether that ever goes away.
I don't think it does.
There's always something more, isn't there? There's always something more you could be. There's always, you know, something else. And once you've got the thing that you think you're aiming for, then it's like, oh, well, now there's this thing. I'm going to go and do this thing now.
Yeah, I also think, I was going to say, maybe the older you get, the tedium of the suburbs is something that you long for.
Maybe.
When you're younger, you want the excitement. When you're older, you just want to have a nice quiet street to live in, that there's no fuss, you don't have any problems, and you just, potter around all day.
Although my parents were like, we're not retiring here.
All right.
My dad said he didn't want to be like a sad man walking down the high street with his 2 shopping bags. Moved out to the country, that's what they did. They went, right, so they've kind of gone for that, glorious, bucolic, but that when you're, but also I think when you're, like, there's something about both this life, this country, and People Just Do Nothing, not this life, this country and People Just Do Nothing, the economic tedium that when you have like no money, that there's no escape from that kind of that doing nothing. You because how do you get out of that? How do you how do you lift yourself up out of that place when you have no way of lifting yourself out of it? And I've really noticed it with lockdown, that when there's been a lot of talk about, don't go out to parks and don't go out to, and you're like, but if you're living in a massive tower block and you've got 4 kids and you're in a flat with 4 kids and you're up in the sky, what are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
And so I feel like a lot of the kind of the advice and a lot of the things that people say about, just move yourself on, or if you don't like where you are, move somewhere else, or it really misunderstands how, and it's not even trapped, how static some people have to be, and how you are kind of in that because there isn't any real choice. All the choices that you're being asked to make are actually false choices that you don't have. Or you can be just have simple pleasures like Kerry, and you're quite happy to stay in the village because there's a shop, there's a pub. What more do you need? Right.
You don't need any more. Yeah,
you don't need anything else. You just, this is your life. This is perfectly great, and this is where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's not, that's not a bad thing either. Like that's great. But also, that you're somehow expected to want more than that, or you're expected to need more than that, and that the other thing that I think we're really expected to have at the moment is happiness. Like you have to be happy. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why do you have to be happy? Like that's a real weird thing to assume, that you could be happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at all times. Like, maybe your state of being is just a little bit unhappy at the moment, and then in a week you might not be a little bit unhappy, and it's like a weird, we're sort of fed all these things that you have to aim for something. Like, well, maybe I'm all right with my inactivity and my
and I think 24 hours of being happy would just be so exhausting as well.
Oh, it would be terribly exhausting.
It'd be shocking.
Oh, it'd be terrible.
Oh, I'd have to watch Schindler's List or something like that just to bring me down a little bit. Just to...
Well, there's that thing where you go, sometimes you just need a good cry.
Yeah, that's right.
Have a good cry.
Well,
so I sort of wonder whether a lot of what we're sold and told, and maybe that's why things like This Country are so kind of compelling, is because you go, you can be all right in that environment. You can also not be all right in that environment.
Yeah.
And you can thrive in your own way without, and this is not to say that people shouldn't aim for what they want to aim for, but it's also that you shouldn't feel like you have to aim for something.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the kind of inactivity of it, and the because all of our lives are minutiae. Right? We never see our own big picture. So when you sit and watch the minutiae of someone's day, it's way more interesting than I don't watch a lot of big thrillers and stuff, or because I'm like, oh, they're all the same, really, aren't they? But watching the minutiae of someone's day is always going to be different because everyone does their minimal things differently. I can't remember which. There's some. I don't know whether it's Stanislavski or one of those ones. Maybe it's Brecht. Was saying the most interesting thing to watch is someone doing their shoelaces up.
See, that's the difference between me and you. You went for that. I thought to myself, that's why Big Brother lasted so long. That's why you are an accomplished actress, and that's why I'm sat in a shed. That's exactly the reason.
But it's true. Like I watch. So when people go, "Oh, have you watched this? Have you watched that?" Most stuff I haven't watched. But if you say, "Have you watched this reality TV show?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, 100%, yeah." Yeah. Because I love it. I love watching the kind of not Big Brother now so much because I think and I've never really got into Love Island, but things like Bake Off and MasterChef, like all of the MasterChefs, like the MasterChef the Professionals one, and things like that where people are kind of creating a thing or doing something. And you watch them doing it, and there's so much detail and drama in how someone bakes a cake or how someone sews a coat, or do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And watching like professionals doing, and watching them making something, like some amazing meal that I would be like, woo, look at my amazing meal, and they're like, no, it's not good enough. Oh, why is that not? That sort of stuff I really enjoy, and I think that's probably why I like this country as well, because it's got that minutiae and they're just, what are people like, and that's way more interesting than, this thing blew up. Oh, there's a place for that as well.
Yes. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you. I feel like I talked about me, not about this country. I love this country.
That's what we want. That's what we want. We want the fans, because you're a super fan, you see. So we want to find out about yourself and stuff. You see. But thank you very much. Good luck with everything after the lockdown when it all goes back to normal. Fingers crossed, and you can sing to your heart's content.
We look forward to the film as well.
And we look forward to the film. Yes,
I'll keep people posted as soon as I know.
Yes,
I'll let people know.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Neil, do you want to do your little bits and pieces?
Yes, absolutely. So do find us on all the social media platforms under WTAF-TC Pod. Which is now the new name for it all. You can email us at WTAFthiscountry@hotmail.com, or you can go to our website for everything you need to know on there at WTAFpodcast.com.
Thank you. And if you want to buy us a coffee, there you go. It's the new thing. It's ko-fi.com/WTAF-TC pod. Come and buy us a coffee. It just helps us out. Or go to patreon.com/WTAF as well. So once again, thank you, Ruth. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you.
It's been such a joy.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you very much, Pam.
Thank you very much, everybody else. And go and get plumbed, you fuckers.
Scarecrow Festival is like the most important day of the year. Daft cow?
This is just ridiculous. What the actual fuck?